Good evening. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. There was just a few things I wanted to say. If not many people log in, that's fine. But I just wanted to say a couple things. I've gotten a lot of questions over the past couple days regarding the Jeff Mara podcast, and there's a couple things that I wanted to clarify that I should have on the podcast, but I was kind of going through it a little quicker because I knew we were going to be calling it about an hour. So it's a lot of information to pack into an hour, and I just kind of wanted to cover all the bases. So the first thing I want to say is there's one thing that I want to clarify regarding my explorations through the decades, and that is the fact that the majority of my experiences have not occurred in the astral. I've had many experiences with both lucid dreaming and within the astral, but the majority of my explorations lie beyond the physical and beyond the astral planes. The majority of my experiences are within the range of alternate realities and other dimensions, which I access with portals. Alternative realities may include realities that seem similar to ours, but they are not. And the other dimensions I have experienced include two-dimensional worlds. Basically, there is no limit to the number of either of these realities or dimensions, or to their limit of sheer uniqueness. Most people seem to want to focus on the astral aspect because it is something that they have some understanding of or experience with, but my main focus was redirected to the alternate realities and other dimensions while I was fully focused on the astral. Now that we're here, I can answer any questions that you may have regarding any interviews, videos, books, or whatever. And given that fact, I'll answer questions that that I have experience in within the astral. But most of it, like I said, lies within the other dimensions and alternate realities, which I know not a lot of people are familiar with. So I can go into that a little bit because right now we have the physical plane and then we have the astral plane, which I believe the astral plane is 13 levels. And above that are the mental planes, and that's where the soul is at. So we have the physical on earth, or the physical realm. Then we have the astral within those 13 levels with the spirit. And then we have the mental planes, which is where the soul resides. And I can't remember how many planes there are there. I don't spend time on that. And then beyond all of this construct are alternate realities and other dimensions. Now, in their own right, what I could say is they're no different from a level of something else, but they have their own unique aspect within themselves. Now, let me give you a couple examples of the alternate realities. Alternate reality could be something that looks very similar to what we have here, and the beings may look very similar to what we look like, and the landscape could be very similar too. You might even think that you were here. But what usually happens is when you're connected with something of that nature, usually it's not just you're seeing it, but you're actually living through a being that lives in that construct. So it would almost be like I could experience life through your body if you were one of my alternate reality consciousness. And that's the way that I look at it. So when I'm there, I'm suddenly in this body, maybe at a dinner table with somebody, and this family is speaking, and it's my family, and we're having a conversation, and I'm experiencing it through this person or this being. But yet that's all I know at that point. And then when I come back, all I know is what happened within that time frame, but I understood it because I was experiencing it through that person or being. Now, let's see. So that's the alternate states. Or generally, I'll pop in and I'll hear something. Somebody will be speaking, and I'll listen to a conversation, and I'm a body there. With the other dimensions, those are on a totally different realm. those could be and are a lot of times within the two-dimensional range or within a range of something that when you see it or when you're experiencing it, you have to try to understand what it is. So, for instance, the very first time I was exposed to a two-dimensional world, I thought it was a picture. If you could imagine having a picture that was the size of a full, huge wall, because your peripheral vision is just really big, really large. So your whole vision looks like this black and white and gray picture. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, what's this? And then I started noticing that within that image, it was moving. And then I realized it was also living, because I call them creatures or beings because they had similar attributes to what I would say a bird does. And then the landscape kind of looked like mountains. Everything was sharp in the image. And I started to realize that, hey, I know they're alive and I can read them and they can read me, because when I first started having portals, there wasn't any live beings that I could see. So I didn't realize that there was any interaction between my side or myself and what was happening on the other side. So I immediately picked up the fact that we're communicating on an energy level so that I could read some of what they are feeling or thinking, and they can do the same with me, I'm assuming. And I also found out that the amount of visual I get to see from my perspective, they can see from their perspective as well. So if I can see an entire room through my vision, they can see that same amount of visual on my side. So you can't hide anything, and unless they disguise something or create an illusion, they can't hide anything either. And so there's no way for me to tell if they do that, because within these dimensions, there's not like people most of the time. And if there are any kind of a visual of what you would think was a human, it's probably an illusion created by the being in order to make you feel comfortable. But in no way, shape, or form do all of them have anything like what we'd have on Earth. I would say some of them I would classify as what you would call a doodle on a piece of paper, and it's actually consciously living in a flat world, which is basically two dimensions. Is what you discussed related to the Buddhist light body? I don't know that much about Buddhism. Most of the time of what I've discovered has been on my own. I don't really study anything like Buddhism or Hinduism or anything of that nature. I don't really study that. What happened was, as I was introduced to the astral, I had out-of-body experiences as a child, but I didn't know what they were and I couldn't control them. And so that was kind of a weird experience. But when I became an adult and I was able to have these, that's when I was redirected from the astral into the portals. And I didn't know what I was seeing or where I was seeing when I first began, because there's no description, there's no anything. I just show up and I'm there, and I just have to figure things out, because there's absolutely no explanation, no guidance. I'm just there and I have to figure things out. And over time, you just pick it up. If the idea of an oversoul is true, you may be viewing from the other aspects of your oversoul. Let's talk about that for a minute. Now, what happened was, over time, I've basically battled my subconscious. It's almost like I'm almost having to wrestle it at some point. And the reason why I realized what was happening is because it was filtering everything that I was doing, and it was blocking me from a lot of my connections. And I had to deduce what it was and why it was doing that. So we have the physical body, we have the spirit body on the astral, and then we have the soul on the mental plane. None of these bodies are us, not any one of those. And the subconscious is also connected through our structure, our substructure. So it's connected with those three bodies. We're not the subconscious, we're not the soul, we're not the spirit, and we're not the physical body. We are consciousness. Consciousness is energy, and that's all we are. But we are bound and chained to these bodies, so we can't get away. We don't need a body. We're spiritual beings. We don't need bodies. So when they talk about soul trap and that sort of thing, the way I look at it is, yeah, the soul is a trap. The soul is not us. We don't belong in the soul. We are trapped within this three body system with a subconsciousness. And what we need to do is detach from all of them in order to become free within our normal state. So when I'm going to these different dimensions or these different alternate realities, what's happening is, and I realized this when I was doing the glimpses through the daydream state. What happens is I get into a brainwave activity state of consciousness. The brainwave activity, what I've deducted is close to the hypnagogic state than any other state that I could potentially, guess about. So I get in this state of mind. Once I'm there, your subconscious wants to take over, because what's happening is during any time you're daydreaming, your subconscious will detach. It's like when you're driving or something, it'll detach, connect with these alternate realities or whatever. And then I was noticing there was something going on. So because I question my reality so much, my consciousness is triggered every time my subconsciousness begins this process. So it tags along. And once it tags along, I'm able to consciously be there rather than just in a state of when I'm, daydreaming. So this way, my consciousness gets the same information as a subconsciousness. I don't have to worry about the filtered information that it gives me, if it gives me any, which it usually doesn't. So I was battling that and the resistive properties of the veil. We all do that. But when we go into daydream states, we're communicating. We've got other, I'm sure, lives in these alternate realities that we're living within our that's controlled by our consciousness. But we're being blocked by all this through the subconscious system, because it's the overseer, and I call it the enemy from within, because it's with us all the time. It feeds us junk. Like when we're in the astral at night and sleeping, and you're not having a conscious astral projection, all you're getting back is just a bunch of junk and filtered information from the subconscious that's not going to give you any information, because it's blocking the reality of what's happening at night. The only way you can know exactly what's happening at night when you're in the dream state is to be lucid while you're dreaming, or to have an out-of-body experience. That's the only way that you can be aware of what's happening to you at night. The dream realm is just it's just an illusion. Dreams are an illusion. So let me explain it this way. If you're dreaming on a normal basis, your subconsciousness is in control of your spirit body. Okay, it's in there. So when it comes back, your consciousness is here and it feeds back some filtered information. Okay, now if you have an out-of-body experience, controlled one, then your consciousness is now in control of the spirit body. It detaches from your body, goes into your spirit body, and when it returns, that information is retained because you're fully awake and you're there. You are there, not your subconscious. Your subconscious isn't you. And that brings up a whole lot of other things that people bring up, because the subconsciousness is really abrasive when it comes down to this, because this is why we don't have the memory of the things that we do, because it's in control of the process. Yeah, dreams are, I spent, before I even began out of body or astral projection, I spent about 3 years prior to that recording my dreams, and I got good at it because if you just tell yourself and over, you're writing your dreams down religiously every night. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and either write down keywords or write down the whole dream. And I was doing that for years. And I thought, well, if there's something here, I should be able to find something. And then, I'll have something. So I just got more confused. And I'm like, okay, this is about work. This is about this, just general stuff. There wasn't, then once in a while you have one that just really seems stupid. And you're just trying to figure out what that means. And you're thinking, oh, does this mean this? So I'm looking in books and I'm thinking, why would I need a third party to translate for me what my own dreams mean? Because they're my dreams. I should understand what they mean. I shouldn't need a third party, because how are they going to know me as well as I know me? So I never got to the point where I really made any sense of it. But then once I discovered that the subconscious was doing this, then it totally made sense, because it doesn't want you to know what's out there. It doesn't want you to know what's really happening. It just wants to keep you in the dark and just feed you junk about about your daily life, usually about your problems. I don't know about animals. I don't know anything about their spirits or anything of that nature. I've never had any experience with it, and I've never seen any when it comes to projecting myself out from anywhere else. That's one thing. I've never seen an animal outside of this realm. But I'm sure maybe they're on the astral. I don't know. I haven't spent that much time on there, but in the alternate realities and stuff, you do see some things, but I wouldn't classify them as an animal, because you can't tell the difference between what they would say is a normal being and not, because they're kind of just, they fluctuate. So I just kind of wanted to clarify the whole thing about the alternate realities and the different dimensions, because they're on a whole different level of beyond this astral part. Because I know the astral is full of manipulation and what you experience on that's why I think I was directed away from the astral, because of the manipulated properties and the fact that a lot of the stuff resides on the astral. So that way, if I'm not in there and I'm trying to learn from that, then I'm not going to be, fed all this crap like most people are. So when you go farther out, what I did discover is every being everywhere, including humans, have their own agenda. So you can't really trust what they say, because you can't prove or disprove it, and you have no concept of who they are, because if they're projecting their image and their background, you don't know who you're dealing with. It's no different from, would you be walking down any big city street and then believe everybody here on the street? No, you wouldn't. Up until last week. Yeah, about dreams being hijacked and stuff, and there's a lot of manipulation that happens within our sleep and within our dreams, and I think it's being noticed a lot more now by more people, because I've spoken to even a lot of podcast people have brought that up. They're saying, yeah, I mean, they said they used to do more astral traveling, and they feel like they're being blocked, and they feel like, well, that's probably happening, because when you have a construct that kind of gets out of hand and you need to reel people in, then some of the different techniques that people are using are probably going to be limited and resistive, because I noticed a lot of the techniques that I've used in the past don't work the same as they used to. And it's not because I'm changing, it's because everything around me is changing. So what happens is you kind of have to be unconventional in your thinking, because if you always did it this way and now it doesn't work, well, don't keep beating a dead horse, trying to find alternative ways in order for you to achieve the same goal. And sometimes it's that little thing in the back of your head that says, why don't you try this? And we think, well, that's kind of stupid, I'm not going to do that. But realistically, that could be your answer. So don't be afraid to try things that you might think, oh, there's no way that'll work, because, sometimes it just matters that you get to that point, not how you get there. Strange self that they approach you. If you're on a news, people don't, you don't come over. It's like anything else. When I'm in these instances, when I first would show up and I first started showing up, everybody would greet me like you're the new person in town and you're a stranger and nobody's seen you before. That's how it was when I first started showing up, and everybody was there to greet me. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. It's like, but once I wasn't buying into what they wanted me to do, or wanted me to follow them or listen to them, or just, once they found out I wasn't a follower, I wasn't a gullible person that was going to believe or do anything that was presented to me, because they made suggestions and I just ignored them, because this is bullshit. I ignored them, and then eventually things started to just like level off. The people weren't there waiting for me when I arrived, because they knew I wasn't buying into it. Like I said, everybody's got their own agenda and there's no way to know what it is. But I've said this before. Several of them wanted me to show me how to keep the portals open. And that was never going to happen. And I would just ignore them. I didn't even address it. I was there to monitor it. I was there to get information. I wasn't there to really kind of get into it at first. I was just trying to take in what was happening and keep my you have to keep your focus. If you don't keep your focus, it's intensely hard to remain there, because you have to be hyper focused to the point where at first if you lose part of your focus just for a moment, you're out of there. It takes an immense amount of focus and energy just to remain there or even be there. So at first, for a long time, I didn't say anything. I was just there to experience, and I came back. But then once I got better at it and more comfortable, and then I could relax and do a little bit more. But at that point, there wasn't a lot around to communicate with, because they knew that, I'm not a follower, and that I'm there to kind of figure out what's going on. And I really don't think that's what they wanted, because they know, I think I for sure know, they know what I am, that I'm a human, and they probably obviously know our situation, and, they want a docile person. It's when you say it's strange that they approach me, not really, because they probably almost never see anybody of our nature that comes through, because first of all, you have to know how to get there, which I don't even know how to get there. I know I utilize the portals, but I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where they're going to take me. So for somebody like me or you to utilize these portals in the other dimensions is a different story. Now, within the alternate realities, when we're obviously connecting, you're there under the guidance and under the control of your subconscious. You are not going to be consciously aware and ask questions and stuff, because you are falling in line. You're like a robot there. You're just following the agenda. But when you go there consciously and they realize it, then you're a different being at that point. You're a unique being. And I don't believe that's what they're used to. So when you go there consciously, it's a complete different story, because the subconsciousness is more like a hive mind type thing, and it's controlling everything. Therefore, they have an understanding, and they know what's going to happen. I believe that we are incredibly powerful and truly creative. I mean, we don't get to see. That's why everything is masked. Everything is filtered that we receive, because If we knew the true nature of ourselves, then it would be a game changer. And I was fortunate enough to be in the situation to get and learn these things. But when I first started doing it, you know, first couple times you go, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 times, you don't really learn anything. You just get to experience it. But then after you've been there hundreds of times, then you begin to understand what's happening under the surface. You can really pay attention to it because you're not struggling just to remain in that position. You're able to, okay, now I'm going to look around. And that's when I think I started to piss some of them off, because I got blocked in one because I ended up in a ceremony, and I discussed it on the Jeff Mara podcast. But yeah, once you start actively, I mean, really actively being there, things will change. But at no time did I ever feel threatened. There was no threat or anything. But yeah, we have an immense amount of power, and I think that's why we're here. If we were just like docile creatures that were powerless, then they could easily take us over. And why go through all this, this song and dance and stuff? But obviously, if you've got an animal or a being that has teeth and claws, but even though they're sedated, you're still going to stand back a little bit because you're thinking, well, if this drug wears off, they're going to tear my ass to shreds. I mean, that's the way they have to look at it. So when you handle a wild animal or something with potential, then you can't always just, take over. You have to go through the manipulative practice and convince them. And because that's how it's going, we're being convinced. I'm trying to read some of these. What I say is, like, you just ask about psychedelics. I don't use anything because there's no way for you to determine what the real experience is versus what the drug is induced. Because also, if people rely on the drugs or the alcohol or whatever to get them to that state of mind, then the only way you'll ever be able to get to it is through that. So if you don't do it naturally and you can't induce it yourself and you're relying on something else, then eventually it probably won't work. But then again, you don't know how genuine the experience is if you're relying on a substance to get you there. So that's why I never relied on anything. If something doesn't work for me, then I have to try the next thing, or I have to be inventive, because if you rely on something else, that's being dependent. And what I'm trying to promote is independence and self-reliance. You have to depend on only yourself, not anybody else, not me, not anybody else, no gurus, nothing. You have to do everything yourself. And that's how we're going to get out of this mess. But we have to work together. What is my opinion on God? Yes, there's a God. Obviously, we got here somehow. We were built, created. We are creators in our own right. So if there's got to be something that created us. And so other than that, the fact that the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So if I even try to explain what I would think about that, I can't even understand my own potential, let alone even understand the potential of someone that would have created me. And it's really kind of mind-blowing how much we have the potential to do that we don't do because we've been programmed to believe that we don't have the potential. So it's kind of like a recycling thing. You just keep following the circle and you never really get anywhere. And the only way you're going to get somewhere is you're going to have to stop in that circle and pick a path away from that circle and start working on your own. And that's the only way you're going to get out of this mess. So what? Okay, I keep skipping the question. So, okay, I've heard the 3D, 4D, and 5D stuff, and I know it's got to be related to some belief that we're going to ascend to this different level. First of all, it doesn't even make any sense because, okay, so what are you going to leave your physical body and you're going to go live in your spirit body, or are you going to live in your soul? Okay, they're all traps. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you go up one level or two levels. You're still in the same trap. It's just a different scenery. So when people tell you, and there's always going to be that drug called hopium or the hope virus. What happens is all these stories come out. First, the aliens are going to come down, this federation of aliens, they're watching over us. And you know what? They're going to come down with grandma and Jesus, and they're going to kick everybody's ass, all the bad guys' ass. And then they're going to save us all and make the world clean. They're going to do all the work for us. And then everything's going to be happy, and we're going to live in the spirit world. We're still stuck in a body, but it's okay because that's the way it is. Then we have other things that are saying, oh no, we got the secret white hat patrol, and they're going to come in and they're going to computer hack everything. And then they're going to make everybody go to jail automatically. And then everything's going to be fixed. What people are looking for is they're looking for a savior. Everybody would rather have somebody else come save them and fix all our problems rather than handle it themselves. Well, that's not how things work. Never once in the history of anything has anybody just came in, saved everybody, fixed everything. That's like, when was the last time somebody came to your house when you had a broken car or a faucet or something, and they just came in and fixed everything in your house and did it for free, and they just left like a little elf and they took care of it? Nobody takes care of your problems. It's up to you. It's up to us. There are problems. We're stuck in the situation, so we need to save ourselves. So by looking at all these fairy tales, and basically is what they are, they're snake oil fairy tales. What happens is if we get enough of these stories and everybody believes it and buys into it, then we won't act for ourselves. We'll let everything happen to us just believing that this savior is going to come and do it for us. And the whole time we're sitting on our hands, everything's gone away. So we've lost all control because we're just sitting here waiting for something to happen, waiting for somebody to save us. So that's not going to happen, and we can't rely on anything like that. You have to rely on yourself, because that's called independence. That's called self-realization, self-control, and to know that nobody's going to be here and nobody's going to save you. So I don't know if melatonin, I think melatonin is probably going to make you go to sleep. I don't think that's even going to work. And like I said, there's nothing easy about it. If you're trying to get in the astral, or if you're trying to get to other states of consciousness, it takes time, it takes drive, it's frustrating, and it takes a lot of repetitive everything just to try. What you're doing is you're throwing a ball in the dark, trying to hit a target you can't see. And eventually you're going to get, the more you try, the better you're going to get at it, the more chances you get. So you're really going to have to, pull your pants up and put in the time. The people can give you the tools. They can give you they can share their knowledge. They can do a lot of things, but they can't do it for you. There's no way. Like I can't push the importance of having control of yourself, whether it's your emotions, your thoughts, or your feelings, because that right there is huge. Getting in control of yourself, just as much as becoming lucid within your daily life. It might seem rudimentary and it might seem simple, but it's highly important. I've been doing it for years and I still have problems. I still run into, there's a weak point right there. I got to take care of that. I got to work on that. So you're always going to be chasing that. But the fact that you realize it means you're on the path of getting to that point. and you have to put forth the effort to see anything. You don't get the cheese unless you run the maze. I mean, that's kind of the way it works. You have to put forth the effort in order to see the reward. Can I visit specifically a person during astral traveling? I'm sure you could. I'm sure that's possible. But I think before, try not to put the cart before the horse. Get yourself into that situation. Get good at projecting yourself before you even get to that point. Now, if you think about that person when you're in that state, but most people just struggle to even have one or duplicate the process once they've been successful. So it's a lot of work. The ones that want the change don't know what to do to start the change. Well, I tell people the first thing you do is find something that interests you, because if it doesn't interest you, then you're not going to pursue it. And if you're not going to put in the time, it has to be something like, oh wow, I think that's really cool. I want to do that. And the only way that you're going to prove to yourself that it's real is to experience it for yourself. And the only way to really understand something is through experience, not somebody else's experiences or not somebody else's words. You have to find truth through experience, and that's the only way you're going to do it. NPCs, you think they occur in order? I don't know too much about the NPCs. I haven't really run into that because that's not kind of my thing, but I've heard about it many times. I just don't know. I'd have to meet people that I would, I guess, consider that. But I don't think I've met anybody that I would even consider being of that. I mean, they might be, I consider people not smart, but that's not going to be an NPC. Do you think you're coming into contact with some of the entities that the Monroe Institute came across in their journey tapes? I don't know. And I really liked and enjoyed Robert Monroe's first book, Journeys Out of the Body. And then after that book, I think it kind of took a hard left turn, and I didn't really get into it. But then I found out he was working with a 3-letter federal agency. Then the credibility went to shit for me. So I don't trust anything that comes out of there. We exist here, there, and everywhere all at once. Yeah. The only thing there really is the present. There's not really a past or a future. Past is basically a memory. So after these words leave my mouth, it's in the past. But it's hard to describe it here if you haven't experienced it there. So I can tell you, but until you say experience it for yourself, you can go, oh wow, okay, yeah, I understand that. Okay. Wetico, yeah, Wetico. Yeah, I've heard of it. It's a David Icke term. Let's see. What key moments made you realize it was all about your effort and your responsibility? I don't think there was a key moment. There was just like, once I started doing it, I just pursued it. I mean, it was just something I followed. And I got to a certain point where I said, wow, if it's going to benefit others, then I need to come up with something and put it all together, all the years of documentation and the experiences. There has to be some meaning behind it. And there has to be something there for people to be able to grab onto. And so I spent a couple of years with it, and I got to the point where I wasn't going to do it because I didn't like what I saw, and I had to prove it to myself through more and more experiences. And once I did, then I said, I'm going to put it out because I'm not going to lie to people, and I'm not going to sell snake oil. So I put it out, and I didn't really think people were going to be interested because people love to hear good stories. They love to hear love and light, and they don't really want to hear anything that's not positive. I'm not about being negative, and I don't run into negative experiences other than what I've seen in the dream state and then the astral, and those were only at certain times, and that was due to my activity. So it wasn't because of me going on there with a bad attitude. It was due directly to what I was doing, and it wasn't something that was well accepted, not by them. So how else can the stars have a detailed rundown of the let's see, we are here. I don't have memories before life. No, I don't have any. I wouldn't trust them. Even if I went to a past life therapist, and I've heard of Diane Cannon and that sort of thing. I've listened to some of her stuff, but the problem is, and this is where I find the issue with that. She would go to one person and they would say there'd be Albert Einstein, and then she went to another person and that Albert Einstein was there too. So she went to 4 or 5 different people, and the same supposed entity or personality was still communicating. That tells me that it's one entity, it's one thing. It was the subconscious. And the subconscious, no matter who is in the hypnotic state, it's feeding them the same story, the same information, no matter who it is. And when they think, oh, because it's a different person, it's going to be different. No, it's not. Because the subconscious is in charge during the hypnotic state, unless you're consciously aware during that time. So what you're doing is you're just hearing the same basic information from whoever you're hypnotizing, because it's coming from the same source, one source. So that's kind of where I come from in the subconscious, because it's nice to believe that you could go under and you're going to come up with all this stuff. But in reality, like I talk about, if the spirit guides and all this, and we're good, and this past life regression, we're really that good, then where are these miracles? Where are these free energy machines? Or where are the solutions for all of the world's problems? Where are the found missing children? Why aren't we, there's so many aspects. Or why are we having all these wars? We wouldn't have all this if this goodness surrounded us. We wouldn't be in this situation right now. Do I 100% think this is a prison with bad intentions, or could it be like a boot camp? The whole of the army time is not. Now, do you think a war is partially good, or do you think it's all bad? Do you think sexually abusing young children is somewhat good or all bad? And that's your answer to your question. What's happening is you either have a bad situation or you have a good situation. You're either surrounded by goodness or you're surrounded by something else. Now, I'm sure there could be good within that system, but what's happening is this is not a good system. We're being manipulated. And it's like saying, well, I'm only being manipulated a little bit, not a lot. Okay, well, that means you have accepted the fact that you're being manipulated. Whether or not you want to agree with it, it's 100% manipulation. So it can't be, part of a prison or whatever, or part of a learning process and part of a torture chamber, So this is more torture chamber than boot camp. So that's how I would classify it. Yeah, I'm a regular guy, just like everybody else. It's I work and make a living like everybody else, and that's the way things are. I mean, I don't know. I did this on my free time. I didn't just I don't quit my job and write books and do videos. I work full time. That's just what I do. Can we break free of this prison on some levels, but it's unclear how far our potential goes. Maybe why these creatures are interested in the illusion. The more that I study the situation, and the more I study our situation, the superstructure around us and our situation, leads me more to believe that it's more of a group effort. Now, let me give you an example. Say we're in Alcatraz right now. All of us are in Alcatraz. We're trapped on the island. Okay, nobody's ever once escaped from there, and we all come up with this escape plan. Like 50 of us are going to go out and we're going to escape. We're going to get free. So we do it. We all are successful. We get out one night and we're successful. Okay, the first thing they're going to do is go, how'd they do that? They're going to plug the hole. That'll never happen again. And then they're going to go over every other thing. We're going to enforce this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. So even if a couple people came out or got out, that hole is going to be plugged. That will be, and people saying, well, if I just don't agree when I die, that's not going to happen. I can get out. If that was possible, if that was the reality of it, then most people wouldn't be here. The other thing is, when you get to that process, the twister is going to be, oh, well, somehow your subconscious is now in charge, and it's going to be making decisions. And you're like in the dream state, your consciousness is sitting back here, and your subconscious is up here talking, and your consciousness is in this semi-drugged out state, an illusion, and your consciousness is fully clear-minded, and it says, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And your consciousness can't really make a decision because it's drugged out. It's an illusional state. So if that was the case, we're being bombarded with these illusional states. And if you can't become conscious in all these illusional states, which is extremely difficult, it'll never fly. So that's the way that I look at it, because I understand how the dream state works and how we get manipulated through there and in regular life. And these are masters of manipulation when it comes down to it. They are literal masters when it comes to it. You can't hold a candle to something that you can't even understand. Yeah, I mean, it's great to believe in, if you believe in a religion or you believe in a religious figure, I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what you believe in. You can be religious and you can not be religious when you do this. The only thing that you really need to have is a strong moral compass. If you merely tell yourself, if you know for a fact, I won't go any farther than this. This is my line right here. And I don't care who tells me what to do or who tells me that I need to do this. I'm not doing it. I won't go past my line. I've set my boundaries, and this is what I do. And you can't say or do anything or intimidate me to any level that'll make me cross that line. And that's what you need to have. You need to have your strong moral values, know your boundaries when it comes down to it. And then, remain calm, collected, and have a clear mind. And that's all about being in control of your thoughts. That's being in control of your emotions. And that's being in control of your feelings, because that right there is one of the most important things we can do physically. Once we get in control of that and get out of the game, we are way more in control than we are right now. We can make decisions and do things not based on fear of something happening to us, but based on our own choices. And that's what I promote. I want people to make choices based upon what they want versus what the rules say, potentially. Obviously not going out and causing havoc, but you don't need to follow rules because you understand what's right and wrong. You have a good moral compass, and you're not going to let people manipulate you to make you do things that you wouldn't normally do, whether it's in a relationship or whether anywhere in life. We need to be assured of ourselves, and we need to be independent. Morals are, that's it. You have to set your boundaries somewhere. We all live in this box right now, our box of limitations. And you need to expand that box, because we've been told what we can and can't do, what we should believe and what we shouldn't believe. And no, you shouldn't astral project because it's not safe, or no, you shouldn't explore that because it doesn't follow your religion, or when I first began, my wife said it probably wasn't going to be safe because she didn't want anybody crawling in my body when I was out. And that I thought it was absurd, but I just didn't talk about it. I still practiced. I did my thing. I wasn't concerned about that happening. But you're going to run into certain situations like that, and you just work around it. So if you know and you're aware of what the potential is, then you just go about your business, and you don't step on anybody else's toes. You do your own thing, and you expand your horizons. Get out of that comfort zone, because that comfort zone is one of the most dangerous things we can be involved in. Whatever it is, extremely involved is keeping us down. The simple fact that we are spirit. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. We're all just spirit. We're not bodies. We're not male. We're not female. We have to be something while we're here. We still have to live in this place. So we have to be realistic when we make our decisions. So when people say, I just want to escape and blah, 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 that's nice. That's great. But you still got to live here every day. And maybe you're here for another 30 or 40 years. So the only way that you're going to survive that is to make it better. And you have to start with yourself first. You fix yourself. You fix your problems. Take care of your weaknesses. And once you've achieved a state of that, then you can start helping. Because what happens is, once you work on yourself, you begin to emit frequencies into the general range that actually raise the level. So by helping yourself, you help others. And when others help themselves, they also help you. So by us working on ourselves, we are all working together and helping each other. So we're not being triggered and all this drama and all this BS that life sucks you back into that pit, just to keep you enthralled in everyday nonsense. Let me just kind of look through some of your stuff. Okay, with the portals, what is my concern about going through it or opening portals? To tell you the truth, I never once had a concern. The weird thing about it is it never crossed my mind. When they first began, I didn't even know what they were. I just called them viewings because this is early 90s, 1990s. I didn't know what it was, and I'm kind of following it's almost like you get on this dirt trail, this dirt path, and you start following it because it interests you. And before you know it, you're walking maybe a couple miles. You're not really thinking about what's going on. And I didn't have any fear whatsoever. And once I went through a couple, I'm like, okay, well, this is obviously it's normal. And, I discovered that this is the cell phone, just like our cell phones, what would be in the universe. Other beings use these portals just like it was normal mode of transportation or communication, just like it's like a cell phone, like we use a cell phone. So for them, it's nothing. And for me, the first, few years, it was like, wow, this is really cool and stuff. But after you've been around it for 30 years, it's like, it's not that I don't respect it or I'm not amazed by it. It's just that once you've been exposed to it for this amount of time, it's like somebody from the 1700s comes here and, the first couple of times they ride in the car, they're just totally amazed. But after they've been driving for 15 or 20 years, it's not a big deal. So that's kind of how it is. It's not that I'm not excited or still amazed by what's going on. It's just that I've been exposed to it for so long that it doesn't push these buttons. So I can calmly walk into something like that just as easy as I can walk into a restaurant here. It's no different. Oh, you're welcome. And it was out of body experiences can be very eye-opening because they allow you to open your mind to the point where you can realize that you can be in more than one place simultaneously. And also, it gives you a better understanding of how time doesn't exist. So there's a lot of things that that you will experience through that will give you more, it will broaden your perspective. One thing that I did notice is utilizing the third eye, because that's what you utilize when you're in the astral or utilizing portals. Your peripheral vision is almost 360 degrees. So it's just like, wow, I could see, pretty much everything. And then telepathy, it's automatic. It's like, wow, how do I understand how to use telepathy? I didn't even try. Just like, okay, I think it. So basically what it is you thinking it, and then you're hearing it in your head. So you don't have to learn any of this stuff. It's autonomous. You go there and it just happens. So what you have to do is you have to kind of orient yourself in that situation to try to figure out, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this. I just got to figure out how this functions properly and stuff like that. But the other people or the other beings are just, it's like you walking in the street, you're talking, having a conversation. You don't need to learn how to use your mouth or your ears. It just happens. So it gives you a broader perspective so that you appreciate things more and you begin to understand things. Because if you haven't experienced it, then you can't understand it. But then again, you can't unexperience something that you've experienced. So that's kind of how that works. If you had any bleed through, any shadow people in the house, anything that followed you back in that manner? No. But what I will say is, and this has got to do with the astral and what I call the dark beings, the dark ones. Problem is, I've been dealing with them off and on for a long time. Recently, well, probably the past year and a half or so, I did realize that, and it wasn't me who called them, it was a situation, and it was kind of stalking me within this dream state, and it kept doing it back and forth. But fortunately, this is kind of how the portals work. So I was getting in these situations where I was feeling threatened within that dream because I could see the darkness it just starts to come in on you, like pixelating darkness that doesn't, it absorbs light. I knew what was going on. I'd be pulled out into a portal. What was happening was, every time that happened, it was desensitizing me to the situation, getting me used to not having any fear or anything, because it let me know that it's not real. It's happening, but it's not real. So after many times of that happening, I was finally able to face the dark one that walked into my dream. I was fully lucid and I confronted it and didn't back down. But afterwards, I realized through all of the exposure. Now I'll compare it to this. When you breathe it, when you smell something, the actual molecules of the odor go up into your nasal cavity, and then your sensory organs pick it up. So actually, you're ingesting some of whatever you smell, and it sounds disgusting, especially for some things. Well, what happens is when you are in the presence of something like the dark ones or whatever, there's an energy exchange there. And during the exchange of energy, I pick up some of what they are. You start to get, it affects you. You can't not be affected by it, especially the many times I was exposed to it. So what happened was, I noticed it was changed, and I go, there's a problem. So I had to go through a whole process, and I figured out what it was. And so I went ahead and I said, okay, I've been affected by it. It's almost like what I would compare it to is something like a black sticky tar. It's not something you can see, but it's something that adheres to you. So what happened was, I started to work it out, and I said, okay, now I've got a really good perspective of how they see us, because I've been affected by it. So what I did is I wrote down everything that I felt, which wasn't normal for me, and I knew it wasn't normal. And I wrote it all out, and then I put it into a video called The Devil's Advocate, and I put it in, I think it's called Your Fears, in that video, because that's exactly the way they see us. They see us as predators, and we are the prey. And at that point, I could see from their perspective, and I wanted to write it down because I wanted to understand what was going on. Fortunately, it doesn't stick with you too long. I haven't been exposed to them in a long time. So luckily, I've been able to get rid of most of what it was, but I had no idea that was going to be um, that was going to be backlash from what the encounters that I had, and that wasn't from other dimensions, and that wasn't from alternate realities. It's been absolutely no problems with that, but this was a different monster. So that's why I tell people, when you are in the presence of them, you just try not to be there, because it's not a good idea, and it's a lot to have to deal with. Sleep paralysis, it's a process when your body goes to sleep and your mind's still awake. Sometimes people can utilize that for their out of body experiences, but that's never worked for me. Once I got to that point, I couldn't really do anything. That's why I use lucid dreaming. Does your memory expand while on the astral? You remember who you are? Oh, I remember. Yeah, you remember everything. It's like when you're on the astral and you're conscious, astral projection, you know everything. It's just like me right here, right now. And the astral is an overlayment of Earth. So what happens is, you know everything, just like you know everything right now, because your consciousness holds all that knowledge. So it's just transferred to your spirit body. You just have a different body, but you know everything just as if you were right now. I mean, you remember a phone number if you needed to. I mean, that doesn't really matter. Would you say the difference between anyone else versus dark ones? Is it just a bad soul? I would say with the dark ones, I've seen some of the other astral stuff and they weren't the same, but I think the dark ones are I think they're the top of the food chain, is what I would say. They're more the top level. I don't know, we call them demon or whatever. The top level darkness is what they are, and I think that's where. But they can take many shapes and forms. But I think, like I said, they're the top level. So if you're dealing with them, then you're probably doing something that pisses them off. You think light beings feed off of our energy like the dark ones? Yeah, I don't know that. Because a light being could just be a dark being, and it just could be portraying itself in a different illusional state. So you really can't tell. You don't know. That's the problem. You don't really know. But with the dark being, the dark ones, yeah, you know. Then at that point, you feel it. You see the darkness and you feel it. It just surrounds you. It's like it's almost like a feeling of doom, or it's just really weird. It's hard to explain. Like when you walk into a room, like a coliseum, and everybody's excited, and you feel all the excitement. You can't put that into words, and this is how this kind of feels. It just has its own feeling. And if you were to experience it, okay, I'll give you. If you're walking out in the dark and you hear something and the hair stands up on the back of your neck, it's very similar to that, but it's a heavier feeling than that. I don't. There is another form that I've seen along with the dark ones, and I would call them shadow people, because they almost look, if you drew like a real thin image of a person, real thin on out of pencil on a piece of white paper, and it was real kind of thin and not really filled in or anything, very light pencil. They're around the dark people, the dark ones, but I don't know. They could be the same. It could be the same or similar. It's just the illusion of seeing things. I can't put a lot of weight into it. I really judge things by how they feel, and that's just kind of my when I'm close to them, then I can kind of get a feeling, and there's an energy exchange. So that's how I classify them. Could the dark ones be other human people astral project? No, definitely they're not people. They're definitely not people. I mean, somebody could say, yeah, it was a sorcerer or something. No, these are definitely not people. if there were black magicians and sorcerers, these would be the ones that are supporting them. Man, let's see, trying to puzzle everything. So the only way you're going to understand is through your own experiences. You're only going to understand through. You're only going to find your own truth, because I can tell you, and somebody else can tell you, and we can all tell you. We can give you the tools, and we can give you some of the knowledge that goes along with how to get to that point, but we can't do it for you. That's the problem. So if you really want to find truth, you have to put your boots on the ground and do it yourself. There's just really no other option for it. And I never once, when I first started, whatever thought, I just wanted to astral project. That's what I started to do. This was never my plan, and I never told anybody about this. My wife was the only one that ever knew over these years, because I thought everybody would think I was just crazy. And until I wrote the first book, I mean, I wasn't sure anybody would even care, because like I said, I didn't know the value of anything. So the only one way you could do it is just put it out there and see if people will value it, because it's hard when you have a lot of mis and disinformation out there. And I knew that, and that's why I felt I had to do it, because I know there's so much crap out there that is polluting people's minds, that is meant to not get you where you want to go. It's meant to detract you from going on a path that would work for you. Well, thank you. We're probably going to have to cut this short in a little bit, but I want to make sure, if somebody has asked a question and I haven't answered, please type it again, because it's scrolling through, and I want to make sure I get your question before I hang up, if I haven't gotten it. So, and I know I've kind of just like tried to do it, but it doesn't always work. So what would you say to mom who's lost a child, as far as what you've learned about the astral and these portals? I would first give you my sympathy, because I mean, I can't imagine. I have children myself, and I can't imagine losing a child. Telling somebody that this isn't real has absolutely that doesn't help you at all. What I would say is, we never die. I mean, we are spiritual beings. We obviously don't perish. The bodies will die, but people are moving on into a different, through the recycling process. The thing that I hope for anybody is that we can all get out of this recycling process, the system of suffering. My end game at one time was like, okay, well, we can find a way out. But that doesn't really work that way, because if we find, like I said, 50 prisoners escape and they plug all the holes and they set up more guards, and it's not going to work. So the only way we're going to do it is, the best way to hack into a system is from inside the system. So that's how we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to improve ourselves, get ourselves under control, and therefore begin to control the system. Because if we change our outlooks and we change our control, then we begin to change the frequency we emit. And then we go against the frequencies of the system. And at that point, we can plan more and get into the structure of the system and basically destroy the system from the inside. That's the whole point. I don't hide any of my plans, because you can't really hide anything. The system pretty much knows what we're doing. I have never met David Icke. David Icke has a lot of good. David Icke is a great person for documenting things and getting information. If you wanted to find out something, he's the guy to go to. I know he doesn't really have much experience on the spiritual side, but he has a lot of data. The guy is really good, and I commend him for all the work that he's done. I work kind of on the opposite end. I'm not really into the all the different clubs and all the different the uh, the issues that are happening, and that's why I kind of stay away from that. I know that the governments and these religious sects or whatever are in on all this stuff, and David Icke is the guy to go to for that information because he really understands, he knows, and that's his forte, and that's great. I'm more on the other end of the spectrum, so I figured that, I mean, I would completely work with the guy because I commend his work. He does a lot of really good stuff, and he's done a lot of groundwork for a lot of people, and I commend him for that too. How often would I ask myself throughout the day, am I dreaming? At the time, when I was like probably 30 or more times, because once I started really doing it, I set my watch. Finally, I didn't even use my watch anymore. I just kept asking myself. And it's just basically what it is questioning reality. And then I continued on. Once I was successful, I continued on. And a lot of times I still do it because, and it's kind of autonomous now. I'll just be walking down the street or driving, and then I just ask myself that. But my subconsciousness is so triggered now. It's so trigger happy now that when something occurs, it automatically catches it. So when I try to do the glimpses, it's always right there. Sometimes it reacts way too quickly and it kind of thwarts my connection, but that's fine. I'm not going to, if it's too efficient, that's fine. I can always try again. But yeah, questioning reality is a way to get you to be more alert of your environment and more alert of what's happening in your life. Thank you. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have hope or love for humanity. Well, that's the whole purpose of it. I mean, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, how can I affect people by them doing it themselves? Because I'm not a guru. I can't do anything for you, and I can't tell you what path to take. But what I can do is guide you towards the tools, make the tools available, make the information available, try to light a fire under your ass, or give you a push in the right direction, or just say a couple words that maybe trigger something in your head and maybe get you along a little bit. I didn't have anybody to ask. That was the problem. I did have one author that I used to talk to years ago, and but he didn't really have any answers, and he moved away. So that didn't work out. So I mean, I spent months and years of frustration, and like I said, I didn't have anybody to call up and ask or anything. So I want to try to make myself available because I know how terribly depressing it is to just not have any answers and to not even have somebody to talk to. Have you been to a place where you can ask a question, answer is automatically given to you? No, not with any of my travels. I mean, yeah, okay, I'll say one. Okay, so I showed up. This is years ago. I showed up at the end of this cave. It's like a long cave, and there was a man dressed in a hood, like almost like a monk's robe with the hood on over his face. And I say a man because it sounded masculine through telepathy. And he told me, he says, "What you see on my end, I see on your end. And these are portals, yes." So he answered that question that I had for many years. I almost was, I knew they were, but when he said that, that just kind of sealed the deal for me. So sometimes, but sometimes your answer might take years. I just got an answer, I don't know, a week ago, and it was from something that I had wrote 24 years ago or 25 years ago. And I finally put it together. So I had the answer 25 years ago, but I produced the question just recently and kind of put it together. So sometimes you just got to be patient and don't look for something to pop up in your head. And sometimes if you really want an answer, begin writing something, write about your experience or whatever. And then sometimes it'll pop into your head because you're in the zone at that point. And that will give you a better connection to yourself or something else, because your mind is not full of all the junk that you normally have when you're hyper focused and you're riding in the zone, then it clarifies everything. And it's got more of an open bridge to send the message to you. So don't discount anything you hear. But then again, don't take everything as, oh, that means that just because I heard it at that time. You got to really question everything, because if you don't question it, then you're just going to become gullible and you're going to look for answers in everything, and you're just going to find untruths. Years ago, I did use Monroe's Hemi-Sync tracks. I had them on a tape, and I think I lost it years ago when I moved. But I don't know. I can't say if they didn't really increase my productivity. I don't think. One thing I will say this, and I've said it before, I try a lot of things, but one thing I did use, and I used a pyramid, just a cardboard pyramid. I put it under my bed, and that probably increased my productivity by, I don't know, 35%. And I tried it with and without, and I tried it having somebody else put it under my bed when I didn't know, so that I can kind of blind test it. So, it may or may not work for you, but it's worth a try, and try anything that you can potentially see. I mean, some people use crystals. If it works for you, great. Do what works for you. Just because it doesn't work for somebody else doesn't mean that it won't work for you. And just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it'll work for you. But if you don't try it, then you'll never find out. So go with what you can afford. Like I said, I just went online and printed out a pyramid from one of those things on a piece of paper, and I folded it up, and I thought, well, this is probably not going to work, but I put it under there, and I'm like, okay, well, it worked. Maybe it's just because I knew it was there and I believed it. So that's when I started the blind testing, and I would just write it down every night. And then I compared my notes over months of time, and I could see that there was definite improvement with it versus without it. And if you have a 3D printer, you can print them too. Just make sure it's at the same, I use the same angles as like the pyramids in Egypt. That's the ones that I used. So, I mean, but there's other ones you can use. You can try all different ones, and they could work for you. So whatever works, that's all you need. Yeah, I printed out. There's a picture of a pyramid. If you go online, it says make yourself a pyramid, and it prints it out, and it shows you how to fold it. It has the flaps and everything. So you just print it out, and then you cut it around the edges, and then you bend it and fold it, and it makes a full paper pyramid, and you just tape it together, and that's all you need. That's the cheapest, easiest way to do it, and that's all I used for years, so it works out good. So anyways, I thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. And I wanted to, if you got any more questions, I'll probably run another live show, probably, I don't know, in 4 or 5 days or something like that. But I've been answering questions the whole time. So you can email me, you can comment on the videos, and I'll be posting more videos too. So, I'm just trying to keep everybody, all the questions, answered, and keep things going. But thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being here. And I appreciate all the questions. I really appreciate it. And have a good day. Thank you.